Welcome, brave viewers, to a journey back in time to one of the most defining moments in history, the Battle of Britain. Today, we will step into the skies over England, where courage, resilience, and determination faced the relentless storm of war. Through the eyes of the men and women who lived, fought, and sacrificed, we will uncover the stories of heroism that shaped a nation's fate. From the roaring engines of Spitfires and Hurricanes to the unyielding resolve of Londoners under siege, every moment tells a story of bravery against overwhelming odds. Join us as we explore the strategies, the struggles, and the triumphs that turned the tide of World War II. Whether you are a history enthusiast or a curious mind, this journey will immerse you in the intensity of aerial dogfights, the tension of bombed cities, and the unwavering spirit of those who stood unbroken. Prepare yourself to witness history not as a distant tale, but as a living, breathing testament to courage, ingenuity, and sacrifice. Sit back and let us transport you to the summer skies of 1940, where legends were forged in fire and freedom was defended against all odds. Imagine looking up at the sky and seeing it filled with enemy planes, your city burning below, and knowing that the fate of your nation rests in your hands. Every second is a battle between life and death, courage and fear. This is not just history. It is the story of ordinary people who became heroes. Subscribe for more history, like and comment if you believe history should never be forgotten, and share to spark conversation about the lessons we must learn from the past. This is not myth, this is history, and it begins here. The summer of 1939 was a quiet, uneasy time across Europe, a fragile calm hiding the storm that was about to erupt. In London, the streets buzzed with normal life. Children played, shopkeepers arranged their goods, and the hum of traffic filled the air. But beneath this ordinary rhythm, whispers of impending conflict grew louder. Europe had been fractured by the aftermath of World War I, and now Germany, under Adolf Hitler's iron rule, had begun a campaign of aggressive expansion. The world watched anxiously as Czechoslovakia fell, and Poland trembled under the looming threat. Britain, still reeling from the memory of the Great War, tried to prepare without panic. In secret offices and dimly lit war rooms, military leaders gathered to discuss what seemed an impossible task, defending a small island nation against the might of the Luftwaffe. Maps of Europe were spread across tables, marked with red lines, arrows, and notes, each representing the possible routes of an invasion or the approach of enemy forces. Young men trained in the open fields, their uniforms stiff, their eyes wide with determination. Engineers tested radar equipment, their fingers moving quickly over dials, sensing that the key to survival might lie in the invisible waves of electricity sweeping across the skies. Civilians sensed the tension too, in the hurried glances of their neighbors, in the sudden increase of rationing, and in the headlines that grew darker with each passing week. It was not just a military preparation, it was a psychological one. Families fortified basements, children practiced air raid drills, and communities gathered to hear the latest government bulletins. The very air seemed charged with anticipation, every sound and shadow a reminder that the war would not wait. Above all, the men who would soon take to the skies understood the stakes. They were ordinary individuals, mechanics, farmers, students, yet they were called to perform extraordinary feats. Each knew that their courage, skill, and resolve could mean the difference between freedom and occupation. As Britain braced itself, there was no clear certainty of victory, only hope, preparation, and a collective determination to resist. The skies that had once carried peaceful clouds were about to be filled with engines, smoke, and the roar of battle. This was the beginning of the Battle of Britain, a struggle not only for territory, but for the survival of a nation. And in these early days, before the first shots were fired, heroes were quietly preparing, ready to step into history. By late 1939, Europe was already engulfed in the shadows of war. Germany's military strategy, known as Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, had proven devastatingly effective. In Poland, tanks rolled across the countryside with terrifying speed, artillery barrages shattered defensive lines, and the Luftwaffe dominated the skies with precision bombing raids. Cities crumbled, bridges fell, and entire battalions of defenders were forced into retreat or surrender. The world watched in shock as this new form of warfare demonstrated the brutal efficiency of modern mechanized combat. In Berlin, high-ranking officials and generals celebrated their rapid victories. Maps marked in red showed conquered territories, and military dispatches spoke of successful encirclements and minimal resistance. Soldiers marched with confidence, tanks gleaming under the autumn sun, their engines a menacing drumbeat of impending conquest. The Luftwaffe pilots, young and disciplined, carried out coordinated bombing campaigns with surgical precision, targeting airfields, railways, and communication hubs, cutting off enemy reinforcements before they could even respond. The speed of the offensive left nations scrambling, unable to mount organized resistance, while panic spread among civilian populations in occupied regions. Across Europe, the news sent shockwaves of fear and urgency. Britain, though separated by the Channel, could not ignore the lesson being written in fire and steel. Military planners pored over reconnaissance reports, studying the methods of the Blitzkrieg, trying to anticipate what the Luftwaffe might attempt next. Intelligence officers worked tirelessly to interpret enemy movements, examining photographs of bombed airfields and cities, searching for weaknesses. Meanwhile, ordinary civilians in Germany and occupied countries were caught between obedience and fear, watching as their landscapes transformed into battlefields almost overnight. In the midst of this, British pilots trained harder than ever. Every aerial maneuver, every gunnery drill, every strategic discussion was now sharpened by the knowledge that the skies above their homeland would soon face the full force of the Luftwaffe. There was no time for hesitation, no room for error. The successes of the Blitzkrieg were a dire warning. The coming battle would not be simple, and only those prepared to fight with unyielding courage would survive. The lessons learned from Poland would shape the strategies of Britain's defenders, preparing them for the aerial duels that would soon decide the fate of the nation. The clock was ticking. Europe had changed, and the storm was moving west. Germany's Blitzkrieg had revealed both the power and the peril of modern war, setting the stage for a battle that would test the very soul of Britain. And as the RAF prepared for the skies to erupt in flames, one thing became painfully clear. The fight for Britain's freedom was no longer a distant possibility, it was imminent. As Germany's Blitzkrieg swept across Europe, Britain faced a stark reality. The war had arrived at its doorstep. The Channel, once a comforting natural barrier, could no longer guarantee safety. In London, the government moved quickly to prepare the nation for a conflict that would demand the courage of every citizen. Airfields expanded, radar stations were constructed along the southern coast, and the Royal Air Force intensified training for young pilots who would soon face a relentless enemy. Prime Minister Winston Churchill, newly in office, inspired both fear and hope in equal measure. In speeches broadcast across the nation, he warned of the dangers ahead while invoking a sense of duty and resilience. His words, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few," would later become immortalized. But even now they echoed through military planning rooms and civilian hearts alike. Britain's leaders understood that preparation would be both logistical and psychological. A nation under siege required not only soldiers and aircraft, but a populace ready to endure hardship and stand united. Across the country, communities felt the changes in their daily lives. Air raid drills became routine in schools. Families stocked supplies and reinforced basements as makeshift shelters. Factories shifted production toward military equipment, aircraft engines, ammunition, and communication devices were manufactured around the clock. Engineers and technicians worked tirelessly, testing radar systems that promised to provide a strategic edge in the skies. Every day, the rhythm of life adjusted to the drumbeat of war, blending ordinary routines with extraordinary urgency. Young pilots trained relentlessly, learning to maneuver Spitfires and Hurricanes, mastering aerial tactics, and enduring grueling physical conditioning. They were aware that the coming battle would test not just skill, but courage, and every sortie simulated the intensity of combat they would soon face. Veteran officers guided them, instilling discipline and strategy, while ground crews meticulously maintained each aircraft, understanding that one mechanical failure could mean the difference between life and death. Britain's preparation extended beyond the military. Propaganda campaigns emphasized unity and perseverance, while civil defense units organized volunteers to manage emergencies and evacuations. The country braced for air raids that were inevitable, turning ordinary citizens into active participants in the defense of their homeland. The tension was palpable, yet hope persisted. Britain was determined to resist, to protect its cities, and to stand against an enemy that had already conquered much of Europe. As autumn approached, the stage was set. Britain's skies would soon become the arena for an epic struggle, and the nation, prepared yet anxious, waited. In airfields, classrooms, and government offices, the preparation was complete. The pilots were ready, the aircraft were in place, and the people steeled themselves for the moment that would define a generation. The Battle of Britain was no longer a distant possibility, it was imminent, and Britain would fight with every resource, every skill, and every ounce of courage at its disposal. As the threat from the Luftwaffe grew ever closer, Britain's military strategists faced an unprecedented challenge: how to defend an entire nation from an enemy that had already proven unstoppable in Europe. The solution lay in the Royal Air Force's meticulous and innovative strategic defense plan, designed not only to repel air attacks, but to anticipate them, using every advantage available to counter Germany's growing aerial might. The cornerstone of Britain's defense was the integration of radar technology, a system known as chain home. Along the southern and eastern coasts, massive radar towers rose like sentinels, constantly scanning the skies for approaching enemy aircraft. Operators in dimly lit control rooms monitored blinking screens and dials, relaying vital information to command centers that could deploy fighter squadrons in response. This early warning system gave Britain a critical edge, allowing pilots to intercept German formations before they could strike strategic targets. Every minute mattered. The faster the intelligence reached pilots in their cockpits, the more effective the defense. The RAF strategy was also deeply rooted in the use of squadrons divided into sectors. Each sector had a specific area of responsibility, with fighter groups assigned to defend airfields, cities, and vital industrial regions. Commanders coordinated movements through a complex network of radio communications, plotting intercept courses and ensuring that pilots were positioned to meet enemy raids efficiently. The goal was not merely to engage the enemy, but to preserve Britain's limited resources while inflicting maximum damage. Pilots trained rigorously in the execution of these strategies. They practiced formation flying, mastering maneuvers such as the Vike and Finger 4 to optimize both offensive and defensive capabilities. They rehearsed interception protocols, learned how to respond to sudden changes in altitude and speed, and drilled in coordinated attacks that relied on precision and trust. Ground crews, meanwhile, prepared for the relentless tempo of battle, repairing engines, replenishing ammunition, and ensuring aircraft could return to the sky within minutes. The RAF also placed great emphasis on intelligence gathering and analysis. Reconnaissance planes patrolled the channel, photographing enemy positions and providing valuable insight into Luftwaffe tactics. Signals intelligence units decrypted messages, allowing commanders to anticipate enemy plans. Every piece of information contributed to a web of knowledge that, when combined with radar and strategic coordination, became a formidable defense against what many considered an inevitable German victory. By the summer of 1940, the RAF's strategic defense plan had transformed Britain's skies into a carefully orchestrated network of vigilance, skill, and coordination. The pilots and crews who manned this system knew the stakes. Their mission was not just to survive but to defend an entire nation. The enemy was powerful, relentless, and experienced, but Britain's strategy, honed through months of preparation, gave hope that courage, innovation, and teamwork could tilt the balance in favor of the underdog. The Battle of Britain was about to begin, and the sky itself would become the battlefield where strategy, skill, and bravery would collide. The backbone of Britain's aerial defense lay not only in its pilots, but in the network of airfields and radar stations strategically positioned across the southern and eastern coasts. These installations were more than mere launch points. They were vital hubs of strategy, communication, and resilience, ensuring that the nation's fighters could respond swiftly to the incoming threat of the Luftwaffe. Each airfield was a hive of activity, where mechanics, engineers, and pilots worked in perfect synchrony to maintain readiness at all hours of the day. From dawn until dusk, airfields thrummed with life. Spitfires and Hurricanes lined the runways, engines rumbling as pilots performed pre-flight checks. Ground crews moved with practiced precision, fueling aircraft, checking oil levels, and inspecting every mechanical detail. Barracks housed young men who alternated between rigorous training exercises and brief moments of rest, their minds constantly attuned to the possibility of a sudden scramble. Even the local civilians played a role. Farmers allowed fields to be used as emergency landing strips, while townsfolk volunteered for civil defense duties. Radar stations, the invisible guardians of the skies, were equally crucial. Towering structures, often camouflaged to blend with the landscape, were equipped with early warning technology capable of detecting enemy aircraft dozens of miles offshore. Inside, operators manned large screens, dials, and headsets, constantly monitoring the movements of the Luftwaffe. Every ping, every signal was analyzed and relayed to fighter command, ensuring that pilots could intercept bombers before they reached key targets. These stations represented the cutting edge of wartime innovation, a testament to Britain's ingenuity and foresight. Coordination between airfields and radar stations was seamless. Fighter command acted as the central nerve, interpreting radar data, directing squadrons, and making split-second decisions about deployment. Pilots learned to trust not only their training, but the intelligence provided by operators, whose observations could mean the difference between success and catastrophe. The network also allowed for rapid response to multiple attacks, ensuring that no area was left undefended. Life at these airfields was a delicate balance of tension and routine. Pilots would sprint to their aircraft at the sound of the scramble alarm, engines roaring to life, and streak into the skies to confront the enemy. Ground crews, knowing that every second counted, worked tirelessly to repair damaged planes and prepare replacements. At radar stations, operators stayed vigilant through long nights, deciphering signals and reporting every detail. Even amidst the danger and exhaustion, a sense of purpose prevailed. Each person, whether in the air or on the ground, was a vital link in Britain's defense chain. As the summer of 1940 approached, these airfields and radar stations formed an interconnected web of readiness, resilience, and precision. They embodied Britain's determination to defend its skies and people. Every plane that took off, every signal transmitted, and every pilot ready at the airstrip represented a nation prepared to face the storm of war. The Battle of Britain was imminent, and the strength of these installations would prove critical in the struggle for survival. The skies over Britain would soon be dominated by two iconic fighters, the Supermarine Spitfire and the Hawker Hurricane. These aircraft were more than machines. They were symbols of hope, resilience, and technological ingenuity. As the Luftwaffe prepared to strike, these planes would carry the weight of an entire nation's defense on their wings, piloted by young men trained to confront the most formidable aerial force Europe had ever seen. The Spitfire was sleek, fast, and agile, a marvel of aerodynamics designed for dogfights. Its elliptical wings allowed for rapid maneuvering, enabling pilots to twist and turn with precision while engaging enemy aircraft. The cockpit was tight and functional, with dials, levers, and controls within easy reach, giving pilots full command over the fighter's powerful Merlin engine. In the hands of a skilled pilot, the Spitfire could outmaneuver even the most experienced Luftwaffe aviators, diving, climbing, and banking with breathtaking speed. The Hurricane, while less graceful than the Spitfire, was equally vital, sturdier and more forgiving. It excelled in absorbing damage and sustaining combat in prolonged engagements. Its construction allowed for rapid repairs on the airfield, a critical advantage when waves of enemy bombers struck. Many squadrons combined Spitfires and Hurricanes to capitalize on the strengths of each, creating a versatile force capable of responding to diverse threats. Together, they formed the backbone of Britain's aerial defense. Training with these aircraft was intense. Young pilots learned to handle takeoffs and landings on short, often improvised runways. They practiced formation flying, mock dogfights, and precision gunnery, their instructors emphasizing split-second decision-making. The roar of the engines, the vibration through the controls, and the adrenaline of high-speed maneuvers became second nature. Each flight was a rehearsal for the life-or-death encounters that awaited them in the skies above southern England. Beyond the mechanics, the Spitfire and Hurricane became icons in the collective imagination of Britain. Civilians would watch them streak overhead, engines screaming, as they prepared to meet enemy raids. Propaganda posters celebrated these fighters, linking their speed and power to national pride and the indomitable spirit of the RAF. Every sortie, every engagement, carried not just tactical significance but emotional weight. The planes represented the nation's courage and determination. As the summer of 1940 approached, Spitfires and Hurricanes were stationed at airfields across the south and east of England, ready for the day when Britain's skies would erupt in fire and smoke. Their pilots, aware of the monumental task ahead, bonded with these machines, understanding that survival and victory depended on precision, skill, and bravery. The Battle of Britain would test these aircraft to their limits, and the men who flew them would write a chapter in history that would endure for generations. For the young men who would fly Britain's Spitfires and Hurricanes, life as a pilot was a mixture of rigorous discipline, camaraderie, and the constant shadow of danger. Many were barely out of their teens, yet they carried the immense responsibility of defending an entire nation. Their days were filled with training, briefings, maintenance checks, and sometimes moments of quiet reflection before the storm of battle descended. The day often began before dawn. Pilots awoke in cramped barracks at RAF airfields, their minds already racing through checklists and flight protocols. Breakfasts were hurried, eaten while reviewing maps and weather reports. Orders for sorties were posted on boards, and instructors called young men to briefing rooms where strategy, enemy movements, and objectives were discussed in meticulous detail. Every flight, every maneuver, had a purpose. Mistakes could be fatal. Training was relentless. Pilots practiced formation flying, gunnery, and aerial combat maneuvers under the watchful eyes of veterans who had already faced enemy fire. Simulated dogfights honed reflexes, teaching young men to anticipate opponents' movements while maintaining awareness of altitude, speed, and position. Physical endurance was also tested. Pilots had to withstand G-forces, long hours in cramped cockpits, and the stress of high-speed maneuvers. The bond between pilot and aircraft became almost intimate. They learned to feel the nuances of every control, every vibration, and every gust of wind. Away from the airfield, life was quieter but no less intense. Letters from home provided brief moments of comfort, while camaraderie among pilots offered emotional support. Stories were shared, jokes exchanged, and nerves soothed by the presence of friends facing the same danger. Yet, even in these moments, the looming threat of the Luftwaffe was never far from their thoughts. The reality of loss, friends and comrades killed in training accidents or air battles, was a constant reminder of the stakes. Pilots also understood the importance of morale. When on leave, they mingled with civilians, inspiring hope and confidence in the public. To many, they were heroes in training, symbols of the nation's defiance against tyranny. But beneath the accolades, each young pilot carried fear, determination, and a profound sense of duty. Every sortie could be their last, yet they faced the skies with courage, knowing that Britain's survival rested on their skill and bravery. By the summer of 1940, these young men were ready. The Battle of Britain would test not only their flying abilities but their resilience, judgment and willpower. In their hands, the fate of cities, families, and an entire nation rested. Each day at the airfield, every flight and training session, prepared them for the aerial battles that would become the defining struggle of the war. Life as a young pilot was both exhilarating and terrifying, and it was a life that would etch their names into history forever. The calm before the storm finally shattered as the first Luftwaffe raids began over the English Channel and southern England. For Britain's young pilots, the early days of the Battle of Britain were a baptism by fire, a test of training, skill, and nerves. The tension in the airfields was palpable as the scramble alarms rang out, echoing across the runways. Pilots sprinted to their Spitfires and Hurricanes, hearts pounding, adrenaline surging, knowing that each sortie could be the difference between life and death for themselves and their nation. The first encounters with enemy aircraft were chaotic and intense. Groups of German bombers, escorted by Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters, streamed across the channel with deadly precision. Radar operators, stationed along Britain's coast, spotted these formations and immediately relayed their coordinates to fighter command. Pilots were vectored into position, climbing rapidly into the skies to intercept the incoming threat. The roar of engines and the whistling wind filled the cockpits as young pilots engaged the enemy, maneuvering through tight formations, executing rolls, dives, and loops to gain the upper hand. Despite their nerves, the pilots relied on training and instinct. Hurricanes were often deployed to attack the bombers directly, while Spitfires engaged the escorting fighters, attempting to break the Luftwaffe's formation. The first dogfights were frantic, with tracers streaking across the sky, engines screaming, and the acrid smell of gunpowder filling the air. Pilots felt the shock of near misses, witnessed comrades dive out of sight, and learned quickly that aerial combat was as much about strategy and situational awareness as it was about raw skill. On the ground, observers tracked the engagements with a mixture of awe and fear. Civilians peered from windows or rooftops, watching smoke trails carve across the sky. Anti-aircraft batteries opened fire, their shells bursting near enemy planes in coordinated defense. Even as the first skirmishes tested Britain's defenses, pilots learned the value of teamwork, communication, and courage under pressure. Each engagement taught lessons that would shape subsequent tactics and solidify the coordination between radar stations, command centers, and fighter squadrons. The first skirmishes also revealed the resilience and determination of Britain's airmen. Despite facing a numerically superior enemy, they displayed remarkable skill and bravery. The Luftwaffe underestimated the RAF's ability to respond, and these early encounters demonstrated that Britain's pilots could hold their ground. Though losses were inevitable, each successful interception boosted morale and strengthened the resolve of both pilots and civilians. As the sun set over the channel, the first battles had already left their mark. The skies carried the scars of dogfights, while pilots returned to airfields exhausted, exhilarated, and more determined than ever. The Battle of Britain had begun in earnest, and Britain's young men, flying in Spitfires and Hurricanes, had already proven that courage, skill, and relentless determination could meet the challenge of a deadly and formidable enemy. As the Battle of Britain unfolded, the Luftwaffe approached its mission with calculated precision. Germany's Air Force sought to achieve air superiority as a precursor to a potential invasion of Britain, codenamed Operation Sea Lion. The strategy was methodical. First, neutralize the Royal Air Force, destroy radar stations, and bomb critical infrastructure, then dominate the skies to prevent any British resistance. It was an ambitious plan, and one that would test the resolve and ingenuity of Britain's defenders. The Luftwaffe's formations were meticulously organized. Heavily armed bomber groups, such as the Heinkel He 111S and Dornier Du 17S, would fly in tight formations designed to maximize bombing efficiency while protecting one another from attacks. These bombers were escorted by fighter squadrons of Messerschmitt Bf 109S, whose speed and firepower were intended to intercept and eliminate RAF fighters. Pilots trained for months in coordinated strikes, learning to maintain formation under anti-aircraft fire and counter the maneuvers of enemy aircraft. Strategically, the Luftwaffe aimed to attack key targets across southern England. Airfields, radar stations, aircraft factories, and port facilities were primary objectives. By crippling these assets, Germany hoped to weaken Britain's defenses and morale. Night and day raids were planned to keep the RAF constantly engaged, stretching its resources to the limit. Bombing civilian areas, while not the initial priority, was later incorporated to demoralize the population and force political concessions. German commanders also relied heavily on intelligence. Reconnaissance flights photographed British installations, and reports from occupied France informed tactical decisions. However, despite meticulous planning, they underestimated the resilience, coordination, and adaptability of the RAF. Britain's early warning radar system, the efficiency of its fighter command, and the courage of young pilots would prove formidable obstacles. In practice, Luftwaffe operations were both daring and perilous. Bomber groups flew long distances over open water, relying on precise timing and navigation. Fighter escorts engaged in high-speed dogfights, pushing pilots to their limits. The skies above southern England became a deadly chessboard, where each move carried life or death consequences. Pilots experienced moments of exhilaration as they executed maneuvers with precision, but also witnessed the loss of comrades, with flaming aircraft spiraling toward the ground below. The Luftwaffe's strategy was a stark reminder of the industrialized and impersonal nature of modern warfare. It relied on speed, firepower, and meticulous coordination, seeking to overwhelm an opponent with superior numbers and technology. Yet, for every plan, there was the unpredictability of human skill and bravery. Britain's young pilots, ground crews, and radar operators would soon test this strategy to its limits, demonstrating that determination, courage, and innovation could challenge even the most formidable enemy. The first weeks of the campaign revealed both the strengths and vulnerabilities of Germany's air force. While initial raids inflicted damage, the RAF's resilience and strategic coordination foreshadowed a battle that would be fought not only in the skies but in the minds of commanders on both sides. The Luftwaffe's strategy was bold, but the outcome was far from guaranteed. The Luftwaffe quickly realized that destroying Britain's airfields was the most direct path to achieving air superiority. In the early days of the Battle of Britain, RAF airfields along the southern coast became primary targets. Each attack was calculated to disrupt operations, destroy aircraft on the ground, and shatter the morale of pilots and ground crews. For the young men defending the skies, these raids were harrowing tests of skill, courage, and coordination. Before dawn, airfields hummed with activity. Pilots performed final checks on their Spitfires and Hurricanes, while ground crews ensured that every plane was armed, fueled, and ready for immediate deployment. Radar stations had already detected incoming formations of Heinkel and Dornier bombers, and fighter commands scrambled pilots to intercept before the enemy could reach their targets. Sirens wailed across the fields, alerting both personnel and nearby civilians to the approaching danger. The first wave of bombers arrived in tight formations, escorted by Bf 109 fighters. Explosions tore through hangars and runways, sending plumes of smoke and debris into the air. Aircraft were destroyed on the ground, and craters appeared where bombs had struck, forcing pilots to maneuver around hazardous terrain. Ground crews worked frantically under fire, extinguishing blazes and attempting to salvage damaged planes, knowing that every functional aircraft was vital for the next engagement. In the air, RAF pilots engaged enemy fighters with determination. Hurricanes often intercepted bombers directly, while Spitfires tackled the escorts. Dogfights erupted above the airfields, tracers cutting through smoke-filled skies as pilots twisted and rolled to gain the upper hand. For those on the ground, watching the sky became a tense ritual. Every flash of gunfire or engine roar could signal the survival or loss of comrades. Despite heavy attacks, Britain's defensive strategy proved resilient. Radar stations continued to feed critical information, enabling pilots to intercept multiple waves of enemy aircraft. Commanders quickly redeployed squadrons to threatened airfields, and rapid repairs allowed many planes to return to the skies within hours. These early airfield bombings demonstrated both the Luftwaffe's destructive power and the RAF's ingenuity and determination under pressure. Civilian morale was tested as well. Many towns near airfields were subjected to collateral damage, and families watched anxiously as smoke and fire rose from the fields. Yet the resilience of the personnel and the support of the local population helped sustain the fight. Every repaired aircraft and every successful interception reinforced the belief that Britain could withstand the onslaught. By the end of these initial raids, it was clear that the Luftwaffe's attacks on airfields would not guarantee victory. While damage was inflicted, the coordination, bravery, and resourcefulness of the RAF kept Britain's skies defended. The bombing of airfields marked the first crucial battles of the campaign, setting the tone for a fight that would demand every ounce of courage, skill, and determination from the nation's defenders. The English Channel became the first true battleground of the Battle of Britain, where young RAF pilots faced the full might of the Luftwaffe. Dogfights erupted above the rolling waves as Hurricanes and Spitfires intercepted bombers escorted by agile Messerschmitt fighters. The Channel, once a tranquil divide, now reflected streaks of tracer fire and smoke as pilots maneuvered at terrifying speeds. The first encounters were chaotic. Pilots twisted and turned, climbing, diving, and rolling to gain advantage, relying on both instinct and training. Hurricanes often engaged bombers head-on, aiming to disrupt formations, while Spitfires focused on fighter escorts, seeking to clear the skies for the slower bombers. Every movement was critical. One mistake could send a pilot into the sea below, a tragic end to a life filled with promise. Radar stations continuously monitored enemy movements, feeding information to fighter command. Pilots coordinated via radio, adjusting tactics on the fly. Despite the overwhelming numerical superiority of the Luftwaffe, RAF pilots displayed courage and skill, managing to down enemy aircraft and protect their homeland. The first wave of attacks left destruction in its wake. Airfields smoldered, damaged planes were hastily repaired, and pilots returned exhausted but unbroken. The resilience of the RAF and the nation became evident. Despite losses, Britain adapted quickly, using radar intelligence and swift redeployment to maintain continuous defense. Ground crews worked tirelessly, often under threat of renewed attacks, repairing runways and engines. Pilots reviewed engagements, learning from mistakes, and refining aerial tactics. Civilians contributed by assisting in civil defense, reinforcing shelters, and maintaining morale through unwavering support. This collective resilience transformed Britain's defense from a mere military operation into a national effort. Every repaired aircraft and every sortie flown symbolized determination and courage in the face of relentless assault. The Luftwaffe shifted tactics, aiming to break civilian morale through direct attacks on London. The first major raid struck terror into the heart of the capital. Explosions shattered streets, fires raged, and the night sky glowed with burning buildings. The raid tested Britain's air defenses and the determination of its citizens. RAF pilots scrambled to intercept incoming bombers, engaging in fierce dogfights over the city. Anti-aircraft guns fired continuously, while radar stations relayed crucial data, guiding squadrons to their targets. On the ground, civilians fled to shelters or watched in horror, enduring the chaos with remarkable courage. Despite heavy destruction, London's spirit remained unbroken. Pilots and ground crews worked tirelessly, and civil defense volunteers maintained order and safety. The raid became a turning point, revealing that the fight was not only in the skies but also in the hearts of the British people. The Luftwaffe's bombing of London and other cities forced civilians into an unprecedented reality. Ordinary life was disrupted, and survival became a daily concern. Families prepared bomb shelters in basements or improvised Anderson shelters in their gardens. Children learned air raid drills at school, while adults organized local volunteer groups to assist during attacks. Civilians endured the constant threat of destruction, yet their resilience was remarkable. Neighborhoods supported each other, with neighbors helping clear debris, extinguish fires, and provide aid to the injured. Rationing became routine, and everyone contributed to the war effort, whether by collecting scrap metal, assisting in factories, or volunteering with civil defense. The human spirit shone brightly amidst the chaos. People adapted, finding moments of normalcy even in blackout conditions, attending secret community gatherings, or singing in shelters to lift morale. The courage and perseverance of the civilian population became a cornerstone of Britain's overall defense, showing that the Battle of Britain was fought not only in the air but in homes and streets across the nation. Amidst the chaos, acts of extraordinary heroism emerged in the skies above Britain. Young pilots repeatedly faced overwhelming odds, engaging superior numbers of enemy aircraft to protect civilians and airfields. Each dogfight was a test of courage, skill, and split-second decision-making. Spitfire pilots often performed daring maneuvers to intercept bombers, while Hurricanes attacked relentlessly to prevent destruction of critical targets. Pilots learned to trust one another implicitly, relying on formation flying and coordinated attacks. Those who fell in battle were mourned, but their bravery inspired others to continue fighting with equal determination. Heroism was not limited to aerial combat. Ground crews, often under fire, repaired damaged aircraft with astonishing speed, ensuring pilots could return to the fight. Radar operators, tirelessly monitoring the skies, guided squadrons into position, their calm precision saving countless lives. The combined efforts of pilots, crews, and civilians forged a collective heroism that became the defining feature of Britain's defense. By late August 1940, the Battle of Britain reached a critical phase. The Luftwaffe, frustrated by repeated RAF resistance, intensified attacks, targeting London and key industrial centers. However, Britain's integrated defense system, radar, coordinated squadrons, and resilient ground support began to turn the tide. RAF pilots, now seasoned by weeks of combat, executed precise interceptions, exploiting the Luftwaffe's weaknesses. Hurricanes decimated bomber formations, while Spitfires outmaneuvered fighter escorts. Ground crews maintained a relentless pace, repairing aircraft to ensure a continuous flow of sorties. Civilians adapted, sustaining morale despite repeated attacks. The combined effect of these efforts forced the Luftwaffe into costly mistakes. Losses mounted, and German confidence waned. What was intended as a campaign to dominate British skies now became a test of endurance, with Britain proving its ability to resist. This period marked a turning point. The RAF's resilience and strategy demonstrated that courage, innovation, and determination could counter even a numerically superior enemy. By September 1940, the Luftwaffe shifted its focus to sustained attacks on London, marking the beginning of the Blitz. Night after night, waves of bombers rained destruction on the city, seeking to break civilian morale and force political concessions. For the citizens of London, life became a constant battle against fear and chaos, while for RAF pilots and ground crews, the challenge intensified. Airfields were under pressure as crews worked tirelessly to repair damaged aircraft and maintain readiness for the next scramble. Pilots, exhausted from continuous sorties, learned to cope with sleep deprivation, extreme stress, and the knowledge that every mission could be their last. Despite these hardships, morale remained high, strengthened by camaraderie, purpose, and a shared determination to defend their nation. Civilians adapted to life in a city under siege. Families took refuge in underground shelters, while volunteer brigades assisted in firefighting, rescue operations, and emergency medical aid. The city's infrastructure was stretched to the limit, yet communities displayed remarkable resilience. Shops, schools, and factories continued to operate wherever possible, embodying a spirit of defiance against the enemy's attempts to cripple daily life. The RAF continued to intercept Luftwaffe raids, using radar intelligence and strategic coordination to minimize damage. Dogfights over London became frequent, with pilots maneuvering skillfully to protect the city's vital installations and civilians below. Each successful interception reinforced morale on both the front lines and among the population, demonstrating that courage and strategic planning could withstand sustained attacks. The Blitz became a symbol of Britain's resilience. Amid fires, debris, and loss, the people and the RAF demonstrated unwavering determination. The continuous bombing tested every resource, every skill, and every ounce of courage, but the nation refused to yield. The intensity of the Blitz forged a collective strength, proving that the fight for survival extended far beyond the airfields and into the very heart of British society. Winston Churchill's famous words, "Never in the field of human conflict was so much owed by so many to so few," captured the essence of Britain's defense. Against the numerical superiority of the Luftwaffe, a small group of young pilots, the few fought with extraordinary bravery, skill, and determination. These men, often barely out of their teens, became the linchpin of Britain's aerial resistance. Pilots flew multiple sorties each day, enduring physical exhaustion, extreme stress, and the constant risk of death. Yet their courage inspired the nation. Each engagement demonstrated not only individual heroism but the effectiveness of training, strategy, and teamwork. Hurricanes took on bombers with relentless aggression, while Spitfires skillfully outmaneuvered enemy fighters, often turning the tide of battle in critical moments. Ground crews played a silent but essential role. Under constant threat of bombing, they repaired aircraft, refueled planes, and ensured that every sortie could take off on time. Radar operators provided crucial information, guiding pilots to intercept enemy formations efficiently. Every member of the RAF, whether in the air or on the ground, contributed to a coordinated effort that defied the odds. The few were tested daily. Dogfights were intense and chaotic, requiring rapid decision-making, precision, and unwavering courage. Pilots experienced moments of exhilaration and terror, as tracer fire cut through the skies and aircraft spiraled toward the sea. Despite losses, their determination never wavered. Each downed bomber, or fighter, was a testament to skill, bravery, and the will to defend their homeland. The impact of the few extended beyond the airfields. Their heroism inspired civilians enduring the Blitz, providing hope that Britain could withstand the enemy's onslaught. The collective effort, pilots, ground crews, radar operators, and civilians demonstrated that courage, innovation, and unity could overcome overwhelming odds. By September 1940, the few had proven themselves as more than pilots. They became symbols of national resilience. Their actions not only protected Britain's skies but reinforced the belief that determination and bravery could challenge even the mightiest of adversaries. The Battle of Britain was still underway, but the contributions of the few were already shaping its outcome. One of the most significant advantages that Britain possessed during the Battle of Britain was its early warning radar system. Long before the first bombers crossed the Channel, radar stations along the southern and eastern coasts detected incoming enemy aircraft, giving the RAF precious minutes to scramble fighters. This network, part of the chain-home system, was Britain's technological edge and proved decisive in countering the Luftwaffe's numerical superiority. Radar stations were often unassuming structures, tall towers with large antenna arrays or camouflaged installations hidden among trees. Inside, radar operators monitored sweeping screens, listening intently for the faint signals of enemy planes. Each ping represented a potential threat, and the operator's skill in interpreting these readings ensured that fighter command could deploy pilots efficiently. Without radar, pilots would have been forced to rely on visual sightings alone, a method far too slow against mass formations of fast-moving bombers. The coordination between radar operators and fighter command was seamless. Once enemy formations were detected, the information was transmitted to airfields, where pilots prepared for immediate takeoff. Squadrons were directed to intercept specific targets, optimizing the use of limited aircraft and reducing unnecessary risk. Pilots trusted the data implicitly, often relying on radar guidance to position themselves advantageously in combat. Radar's impact extended beyond tactical advantage. It boosted morale among pilots and civilians alike, demonstrating that Britain had foresight and technological capability to withstand enemy attacks. Even as bombers rained destruction on airfields or cities, the radar system allowed for strategic responses that minimized losses and maximized defensive effectiveness. By late 1940, the radar network had proven its worth repeatedly. It enabled the RAF to concentrate forces where they were most needed, anticipate Luftwaffe strategies, and maintain continuous aerial defense. This invisible shield, manned by tireless operators, was as vital as the courage of pilots in the skies. It symbolized Britain's ingenuity and readiness, proving that the combination of human skill and advanced technology could turn the tide against even the most formidable enemy. While the Battle of Britain was a war of planes and strategy, it was also a deeply personal struggle for the young men who fought in the skies. Pilots faced fear, exhaustion, and the emotional toll of witnessing the loss of comrades, all while carrying the responsibility of defending their homeland. These personal struggles were a hidden yet critical component of the battle. Daily life for pilots was grueling. Many flew multiple sorties in a single day, pushing their physical and mental endurance to the limit. Sleep was scarce, meals were often brief or missed entirely, and the adrenaline of combat made rest fleeting. Each mission carried the risk of death or injury, and pilots constantly grappled with the knowledge that one miscalculation could be fatal. Psychological pressures weighed heavily. Watching friends and fellow pilots fall in combat left deep emotional scars. The camaraderie among pilots provided some relief, as they shared fears, stories, and encouragement, but each engagement reminded them of their vulnerability. Despite the challenges, they persevered, driven by duty, patriotism, and the determination to protect civilians on the ground. Beyond fear and exhaustion, pilots also contended with the unpredictability of combat. Dogfights were chaotic, requiring split-second decisions, extraordinary skill, and nerve. Pilots learned to trust their instincts and training, adapting quickly to the ever-changing dynamics of aerial warfare. Every successful interception brought relief, while each near miss reinforced the precariousness of life in the skies. The emotional and personal toll of the Battle of Britain highlighted the human dimension of warfare. It was not just aircraft, radar, or tactics that determined the outcome. It was the courage, resilience, and perseverance of individuals. These personal struggles forged character, strengthened resolve, and created the legendary aura surrounding the few. By enduring exhaustion, fear, and loss, pilots became symbols of determination and heroism. Their personal battles, fought daily in the skies above Britain, exemplified the human spirit's capacity to confront adversity with bravery, skill, and unwavering commitment. The Battle of Britain was not just a clash of air forces, it was a test of endurance, courage, and humanity under fire. By late September 1940, the Luftwaffe had committed several critical errors that began to shift the momentum of the Battle of Britain. Initially focused on RAF airfields, Germany's strategy changed, targeting London in the hopes of breaking civilian morale. While devastating to civilians, this shift allowed the RAF to recover damaged airfields, repair aircraft, and regroup pilots. The Luftwaffe underestimated the resilience of British infrastructure and the adaptability of the RAF. Their bombers, now focused on urban targets, often flew without sufficient fighter escort, making them vulnerable to interception. Spitfires and Hurricanes capitalized on this, taking down bombers with increased efficiency. RAF pilots adapted tactics, exploiting the Luftwaffe's predictable flight paths and attacking in coordinated waves, maximizing the effectiveness of each sortie. Additionally, the German command misjudged the psychological impact of bombing civilian areas. Far from demoralizing Britain, the raids galvanized the population. Civilians endured air raids with remarkable fortitude, supporting the war effort and maintaining morale in bombed-out neighborhoods. This resilience frustrated Luftwaffe planners, whose expectations of a quick victory over Britain were increasingly unrealistic. The consequences of these mistakes became evident as German losses mounted. Pilots were lost at unsustainable rates, and bomber formations were decimated over cities and countryside alike. Germany's shift in strategy, intended to force Britain's surrender, inadvertently strengthened the RAF's position, allowing Britain to continue defending its skies with determination and precision. While the focus of the Battle of Britain often centers on pilots, women played a vital role in supporting the war effort. They served in auxiliary roles across the Royal Air Force and civil defense organizations, keeping Britain's skies defended and its population protected. Their contributions were essential to sustaining the campaign. Women served in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force, operating radar stations, handling communications, and plotting enemy movements. Radar operators, mostly women, were responsible for tracking Luftwaffe raids and relaying precise information to fighter command. Their accuracy and speed allowed RAF pilots to respond effectively, often changing the outcome of engagements. In addition, women worked as ambulance drivers, nurses, and air raid wardens, assisting civilians during bombing raids. They organized shelters, distributed supplies, and aided in firefighting and rescue operations. Factories relied heavily on female workers to produce aircraft, ammunition, and other essential war materials, ensuring that Britain's defensive capabilities remained strong despite continuous attacks. The courage and dedication of women during the Battle of Britain were remarkable. They balanced fear with responsibility, performing critical tasks under threat of attack while supporting pilots, ground crews, and civilians. Their efforts demonstrated that the defense of Britain was a collective endeavor, with both men and women contributing indispensably to the nation's survival. As the Battle of Britain intensified, the RAF recognized the need to continuously train new pilots to replace losses and strengthen defenses. Airfields became hubs of rigorous instruction, where young men learned the skills necessary to face the Luftwaffe. Training was relentless, preparing pilots for the realities of aerial combat. The curriculum combined classroom instruction with practical flight experience. Trainees studied aircraft mechanics, navigation, gunnery, and combat tactics before taking to the skies in practice sorties. Veteran pilots supervised maneuvers, teaching formation flying, dogfighting techniques, and evasive actions against enemy fire. The training emphasized precision, discipline, and quick decision-making, as even minor errors in combat could be fatal. Ground crews and support staff also contributed to the preparation of new pilots. Mechanics ensured that training aircraft were maintained, weapons were operational, and airfields were safe for repeated takeoffs and landings. Radar operators practiced guiding student pilots during simulated interceptions, enhancing coordination and communication skills essential for future combat. The next wave of pilots represented hope for the RAF. Many were young, eager, and filled with patriotic determination. Aware of the legacy of those already fighting above Britain, they trained tirelessly, knowing that their future actions could protect civilians, defend airfields, and shape the outcome of the battle. Training also fostered resilience and camaraderie. Pilots bonded with one another, sharing experiences, supporting each other during challenges, and preparing mentally for the stresses of aerial warfare. This preparation created a pipeline of skilled aviators ready to join squadrons and face the Luftwaffe with courage and competence. By continuously replenishing the ranks, the RAF ensured that the fight could continue despite losses. The commitment to training the next wave of pilots became a cornerstone of Britain's strategy, reinforcing the nation's determination to defend its skies against overwhelming odds. The efforts of instructors, ground crews, and trainees alike demonstrated that victory depended not only on those in combat but also on the preparation, skill, and unity of all involved. Intelligence played a critical role in Britain's defense during the Battle of Britain. From intercepting German communications to analyzing reconnaissance reports, intelligence officers worked tirelessly to provide RAF commanders with the information needed to make strategic decisions. The accuracy and speed of intelligence often determined the success of aerial engagements. The British intelligence network included codebreakers at Bletchley Park who deciphered German messages, providing insight into Luftwaffe plans. Meanwhile, reconnaissance aircraft surveyed enemy positions, photographing airfields, ports, and troop concentrations in occupied France and the Low Countries. These reports were analyzed to predict the timing, route, and size of enemy formations. Radar data, another key component of intelligence, was constantly monitored and relayed to fighter command. Operators identified incoming aircraft, distinguishing between bombers and fighters, and provided precise coordinates for intercepts. Commanders could then deploy squadrons efficiently, concentrating forces where needed while avoiding unnecessary risk. Intelligence extended to understanding enemy weaknesses. Analysts studied Luftwaffe tactics, identifying predictable patterns and operational errors. By anticipating these mistakes, the RAF gained a crucial advantage, allowing fewer pilots to counter larger formations effectively. The role of intelligence was often invisible to the public but indispensable to victory. Accurate information saved lives, protected cities, and allowed the RAF to maximize its limited resources. The collaboration between codebreakers, radar operators, reconnaissance teams, and analysts created a network of knowledge that directly contributed to Britain's ability to resist the Luftwaffe's attacks. Throughout the Battle of Britain, several iconic air battles became symbols of courage and skill. Engagements over Dover, the Thames estuary, and the skies above London showcased the RAF's ability to confront and overcome superior enemy forces. These battles tested tactics, endurance, and coordination at every level. One such engagement occurred over the Channel, where a small squadron of Spitfires intercepted a larger formation of German bombers. The pilots' precise maneuvers and coordinated attacks led to the destruction of multiple enemy aircraft, demonstrating the effectiveness of training, teamwork, and strategy. Hurricanes simultaneously targeted bombers, forcing them off course and reducing the threat to airfields and cities. The battles were chaotic and intense. Tracer fire streaked across clouds, engines roared, and smoke trails marked the destruction of aircraft. Pilots experienced moments of sheer terror as enemy fighters closed in, yet also moments of exhilaration as their skill prevailed. Each battle reinforced lessons in aerial combat, shaping tactics for future engagements. On the ground, these victories boosted morale. Civilians cheered returning pilots, and ground crews prepared for the next wave of sorties. Media reports highlighted heroic actions, inspiring the public and fostering a sense of shared purpose. The combination of courage, strategy, and resilience made these battles iconic, illustrating that even in the face of overwhelming odds, skill and determination could prevail. Despite the bravery and skill demonstrated by the RAF and civilians, the Battle of Britain came at a high cost. Pilots were killed or wounded, aircraft destroyed, and cities damaged by relentless Luftwaffe raids. Each victory was tempered by the harsh realities of war, highlighting the sacrifices required to defend the nation. Losses were felt personally and collectively. Families mourned pilots who did not return, while airfields bore the marks of destroyed planes and equipment. Ground crews worked under immense pressure, knowing that even a small mistake could result in tragedy. Civilians, too, suffered from the destruction of homes, workplaces, and public spaces. Yet these losses underscored the resilience and determination of Britain. Every aircraft repaired, every mission flown, and every life saved represented a small triumph amid adversity. Pilots honored fallen comrades by continuing to fight, maintaining the intensity and discipline necessary to repel further attacks. Civil defense volunteers, doctors, and firefighters kept cities functional, ensuring that life continued despite destruction. The cost of victory became a reminder that war is never without sacrifice. The courage of the few, the efforts of ground crews, and the endurance of civilians all contributed to Britain's ultimate ability to withstand the Luftwaffe. The Battle of Britain demonstrated that victory was earned through bravery, strategy, and the willingness to endure hardship for the greater good. By the end of 1940, Britain had not only preserved its skies but also demonstrated the power of unity, determination, and courage. The losses incurred were tragic, but they became part of a larger story of resilience and national survival, shaping the nation's identity and inspiring future generations. By October 1940, the Luftwaffe faced the consequences of underestimating Britain's resilience. Their failure to achieve air superiority forced Germany to reconsider Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain. The sustained losses of aircraft and pilots, combined with ineffective bombing campaigns, revealed critical flaws in German strategy. Initially, the Luftwaffe relied on large-scale bombing raids and superior numbers to overwhelm RAF defenses. However, repeated engagements exposed vulnerabilities. Bombers were decimated when sent without adequate fighter escort, and attacks on civilian areas failed to demoralize the population as intended. Pilots faced fatigue, morale issues, and unpredictable RAF tactics, further undermining German objectives. The German command recognized that Britain's integrated defense, radar, trained pilots, and rapid aircraft repair made air superiority difficult, if not impossible, to achieve with the forces available. As a result, the Luftwaffe shifted focus to intermittent raids, hoping to sustain pressure while conserving resources. Yet, these efforts failed to match the strategic impact originally envisioned. Britain's success in resisting the Luftwaffe forced Germany into a defensive posture over northern Europe. The failure of air campaigns delayed further plans, allowing Britain to strengthen its defenses and prepare for the wider war. The Battle of Britain demonstrated that courage, strategy, and innovation could counter numerical superiority and profoundly influence the enemy's strategic decisions. The Battle of Britain became a symbol of courage, resilience, and national unity, remembered for the bravery of the few and the endurance of civilians. From 1941 onward, commemoration efforts began to honor those who had fought and sacrificed, ensuring that their contributions would not be forgotten. Monuments, memorials, and ceremonies celebrated the pilots, ground crews, radar operators, and civil defense volunteers. Photographs, newspapers, and film footage captured heroic actions, bringing the story of the Battle of Britain to generations who would never witness the conflict firsthand. Schools and communities held events to teach children about the courage and resilience demonstrated during those crucial months. Personal stories became central to commemoration. Pilots shared accounts of dogfights, narrow escapes, and camaraderie. Families recounted the loss of loved ones and acts of heroism witnessed on the ground. These narratives humanized the battle, reminding people that it was fought not only with machines but with courage, skill, and sacrifice. The memory of the Battle of Britain also reinforced national identity and pride. It demonstrated that determination, unity, and strategy could overcome seemingly insurmountable odds. The bravery of a relatively small group of individuals inspired future generations to value courage, service, and resilience in the face of adversity. Commemoration extended beyond Britain. Allied nations recognized the significance of the battle and honored the contributions of foreign pilots, including Poles, Czechs, and Canadians, who fought alongside the RAF. Their inclusion highlighted the international effort and solidarity that underpinned Britain's defense. Through ceremonies, memorials, and educational initiatives, the Battle of Britain remained a touchstone for courage and determination. It symbolized the enduring human spirit, showing that even in the darkest times, bravery and unity could preserve freedom and shape the course of history. The Battle of Britain provided crucial lessons for military strategy, leadership, and national resilience. It demonstrated the importance of integrated defense systems, including radar, rapid communication, and coordinated response. The effectiveness of combining technology with human skill highlighted that strategic planning and adaptability could counter a numerically superior force. Leadership played a vital role. Figures such as Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding exemplified calm, strategic thinking under pressure. Their ability to coordinate intelligence, allocate resources efficiently, and maintain morale was as important as the bravery of the pilots in the air. Leadership decisions shaped the outcome, proving that strategy and vision are as crucial as force in modern warfare. The battle also underscored the human dimension of conflict. The courage of pilots, the dedication of ground crews, and the resilience of civilians all contributed to Britain's success. Each individual's role, no matter how small it seemed at the time, had a cumulative effect, emphasizing that collective effort can overcome formidable challenges. Additionally, the battle highlighted the importance of morale. Despite heavy bombing and loss, civilians remained determined, and pilots maintained resolve under extreme stress. Sustaining morale, both on the home front and in combat units, proved essential to operational success. Finally, the Battle of Britain reinforced the significance of international cooperation. Pilots from allied nations, including Poland, Canada, and Czechoslovakia, made crucial contributions, showing that unity and shared purpose can amplify effectiveness in critical moments. The lessons learned from the Battle of Britain continue to resonate. They remind us that preparation, courage, adaptability, leadership, and collective resilience are critical not only in warfare, but in facing any challenge. The battle became more than a historical event. It became a model for strategy, determination, and the enduring power of human spirit. The Battle of Britain highlighted the critical role of technology in modern warfare. Britain's use of radar, advanced aircraft, and communication systems allowed a relatively small force to withstand a numerically superior enemy. These technological innovations provided both tactical and strategic advantages that were decisive in defending the nation. Radar, part of the chain home network, enabled early detection of incoming Luftwaffe formations. Operators could track aircraft, distinguish bombers from fighters, and relay accurate information to fighter command. This allowed RAF squadrons to deploy efficiently, conserving resources and intercepting enemy planes before they reached key targets. Aircraft technology also played a vital role. The Spitfire and Hurricane combined speed, maneuverability, and firepower, giving pilots the ability to engage enemy formations effectively. Continuous improvements in aircraft design, armaments, and tactics allowed the RAF to adapt quickly to Luftwaffe strategies, maintaining superiority in critical engagements. Communication systems linked radar stations, command centers, airfields, and pilots, creating a coordinated defensive network. Real-time information sharing enabled rapid responses to enemy movements, maximizing the effectiveness of each sortie. The integration of human skill with technology demonstrated that innovation could amplify the impact of a smaller force. Technological innovation extended beyond hardware. Tactical strategies evolved alongside new capabilities, including coordinated interception patterns, formation flying, and predictive deployment based on radar and intelligence reports. These innovations ensured that the RAF could respond flexibly and decisively to the unpredictable Luftwaffe attacks. The Battle of Britain exemplified how technology, when combined with training, leadership, and courage, could compensate for numerical inferiority. The lessons learned about innovation, adaptation, and integration of new technologies continue to inform military strategy to this day. The Battle of Britain was not fought solely by British pilots. Allied contributions from nations such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, Canada, Belgium, and New Zealand played a critical role in strengthening the RAF. These international pilots brought skill, experience, and determination, enhancing Britain's defensive capabilities. Polish pilots, many of whom had fought in the invasion of Poland in 1939, joined RAF squadrons with experience and courage. They quickly adapted to British aircraft and tactics, often distinguishing themselves in critical engagements. Czechoslovakian pilots also contributed significantly, bringing expertise and determination to defend a nation under threat. Canadian, Belgian, and other Commonwealth pilots supplemented British forces, flying sorties, engaging enemy aircraft, and protecting vital targets. Their participation symbolized international solidarity, reinforcing the idea that Britain's defense was part of a larger Allied effort. These contributions were not limited to the air. Technicians, intelligence personnel, and support staff from Allied nations also assisted in maintaining aircraft, relaying information, and coordinating defense operations. The shared commitment fostered camaraderie among diverse nationalities, united by a common purpose to prevent Germany from gaining air superiority. The presence of international pilots also inspired civilians, demonstrating that Britain was supported by a broader coalition. Newspapers and propaganda highlighted their heroism, reinforcing morale and emphasizing the global significance of the battle. The Battle of Britain became a testament to international cooperation and collective resistance against a common enemy. Sustaining morale was crucial for Britain during the relentless attacks of the Battle of Britain. Pilots faced exhaustion and constant danger, while civilians endured nightly bombings, loss of homes, and uncertainty. Maintaining courage and resolve became as important as aircraft and tactics. For pilots, camaraderie, shared purpose, and recognition of achievements reinforced morale. Debriefings, letters from home, and support from ground crews reminded them of the importance of their missions. Small victories, such as downing enemy aircraft or protecting airfields, provided motivation to continue despite fatigue and fear. Civilians drew strength from community solidarity. Shelters became spaces of mutual support, where families and neighbors shared resources, stories, and hope. Voluntary organizations, such as the Women's Voluntary Service, provided food, assistance, and comfort, fostering resilience and a sense of purpose. Media and propaganda also played a role in sustaining morale. Newspapers, posters, and radio broadcasts highlighted RAF heroics, celebrated resilience on the home front, and encouraged unity. Winston Churchill's speeches, including his famous "Never in the Field of Human Conflict" address, inspired confidence and pride across the nation. Schools, churches, and local gatherings reinforced morale, teaching the younger generation the value of courage and perseverance. Stories of heroism and sacrifice were shared, creating a collective narrative that strengthened resolve and national identity. Sustaining morale was not just about maintaining spirits, it was a strategic necessity. A motivated, confident population could endure hardships, support defense efforts, and contribute to the overall war effort. The Battle of Britain demonstrated that victory depended not only on planes and pilots but also on the determination, resilience, and unity of an entire nation. Airfields were the backbone of Britain's aerial defense. Each day, pilots and ground crews faced the intense pace of operations. Hangars buzzed with activity as planes were refueled, repaired, and armed for their next sorties. The smell of aviation fuel, oil, and smoke filled the air, a constant reminder of the stakes. Pilots rested briefly between missions, using spare moments to clean equipment, write letters home, or mentally prepare for the next sortie. Ground crews worked tirelessly, repairing damaged aircraft, replacing engines, and ensuring that planes were combat-ready. Every second counted, as the Luftwaffe could strike at any time. The social life on airfields was a mix of camaraderie and tension. Mess halls and recreation tents allowed pilots and crews to share stories, jokes, and encouragement. These interactions strengthened bonds, creating a sense of family amidst the stress and danger. Discipline, teamwork, and morale were maintained, reinforcing the operational effectiveness of each squadron. The daily routine at airfields reflected the determination of Britain's defense. While life was exhausting and perilous, the commitment of pilots, crews, and support staff ensured that Britain's skies remained protected. Dogfights were deadly, and survival often depended on split-second decisions. Pilots faced tracer fire, exploding bombs, and enemy fighters at every sortie. Many narrowly escaped death, witnessing comrades fall and planes spiral out of control. Ejection, bailing out, or crash landing were common experiences. Pilots relied on training, instinct, and quick thinking to survive. Each close call reinforced resilience and sharpened skills. Stories of narrow escapes, circulated among squadrons, inspiring courage and determination. Surviving these encounters left psychological scars. Pilots struggled with stress, fear, and grief, but camaraderie and purpose helped them endure. Every day in the sky was a battle of skill, courage, and willpower. Civilians endured bombings, shortages, and fear, yet their resilience was extraordinary. Communities organized shelters, rationing, and volunteer groups. People maintained work, schools, and social activities wherever possible. Children attended makeshift schools, volunteers provided medical aid, and families shared resources. Cultural events, songs, and humor helped sustain morale. Civilians became active participants in the defense, supporting pilots and emergency services alike. Their courage and adaptability reinforced national morale and contributed directly to Britain's ability to resist Luftwaffe attacks. RAF pilots continuously adapted tactics to counter evolving Luftwaffe strategies. Formation flying, coordinated interceptions, and use of radar guidance maximized effectiveness. Pilots developed evasive maneuvers, diving attacks, and teamwork to overcome numerical disadvantage. Tactical innovation allowed fewer aircraft to defeat larger enemy formations, exploiting weaknesses and maintaining operational efficiency. The evolution of aerial combat tactics became a key factor in Britain's defense. Beyond physical combat, the Battle of Britain was a psychological struggle. Pilots faced fear, fatigue, and loss daily. Civilians endured terror from nightly bombings. Maintaining morale, courage, and focus was essential. Churchill's speeches, media reports, and community solidarity bolstered psychological resilience. Pilots drew strength from teamwork, civilians from mutual support. The mental battle was as critical as aerial engagements, proving that determination could shape outcomes. By late 1940, the RAF had gained superiority in the skies. German losses mounted, morale declined, and sustained bombing failed to break civilian resolve. Britain's integrated defense system, experienced pilots, and resilient population turned the tide. RAF pilots flew with confidence, intercepting attacks efficiently. Ground crews maintained aircraft and readiness, while civilians remained steadfast. The turning tide marked the beginning of sustained British control of airspace, a critical strategic advantage. The Luftwaffe's retreat signaled Britain's triumph in the skies. The bravery of the few, the dedication of ground crews, and the resilience of civilians combined to secure victory. RAF control of airspace prevented invasion and safeguarded the nation. Victory was not without cost, but the success reinforced courage, unity, and strategic innovation. Britain's defense became legendary, inspiring Allied forces and future generations. The Battle of Britain became a defining moment in history. It demonstrated courage, strategy, innovation, and resilience. The heroism of pilots, ground crews, and civilians prevented invasion and shaped the course of World War II. Its legacy endures in monuments, stories, and education. The few remain symbols of bravery. Civilians exemplify determination. Lessons in leadership, unity, and innovation continue to inspire, proving that collective effort and courage can overcome immense challenges. The Battle of Britain is remembered not only as a military victory, but as a testament to the human spirit's capacity for courage, endurance, and hope. As we close this journey through the skies of 1940, let us remember the extraordinary courage of the few who faced overwhelming odds and yet refused to yield. Each pilot, each ground crew member, each radar operator, and each civilian played a part in a story of resilience that transcends time. Their bravery was not only in the dogfights above the clouds, but in the quiet determination on the ground, in the tireless work to repair planes, and in the courage to carry on despite loss and fear. The Battle of Britain reminds us that true heroism is measured not only by victories, but by the steadfastness of spirit. It teaches that unity, courage, and hope can withstand the darkest hours, and that every small act of determination contributes to a larger triumph. As we reflect on their sacrifices, Let us feel gratitude for their unwavering resolve and inspiration for our own challenges today. Let their legacy ignite courage in our hearts, reminding us that even in the face of fear, determination can create miracles. The skies of Britain were defended, freedom preserved, and the human spirit gloriously affirmed. May we honor their memory always and carry forward the lessons of bravery, hope, and resilience.